Hey guys, it's Catherine Morgan here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Now this channel is here to bring you short but powerful videos to help you to navigate both the emotional side of money, our relationship with money, and the practical steps to help you to reduce financial anxiety and become more financially empowered to deserve wealth, grow wealth, and create wealth. My name's Catherine and I'm a qualified financial planner and international multi-award winning financial coach. That's a bit of a mouthful. So welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button and do leave me a comment below and let me know what was your biggest takeaway from listening to this video. Speak to you soon. Hey guys, and welcome back to the In Her Financial Shoes podcast. And today we're going to be talking about some major rules to stop you getting into debt. Now, this is a really important subject to me for several reasons. One is because I've been in your shoes. If you're listening to this and thinking, I have got debts and you want to get out of debt, then it's really important to me to talk you through some of the key things that really helped me to get out of that situation. But more importantly, to help you not get back in that situation again, because often financial habits and behaviors end up being on this habit loop. And so we end up getting out of debt, but then we go back into debt again. And I don't want that to happen for you if you can avoid doing so. So that's what all this episode is about today, is rules to help you to stop getting into debt or back into debt. So before we go into this episode, I wanted to do a quick shout out to my international listeners. We've been doing some kind of little reviews on our podcast listenership. We've been looking at the countries that people listen to us from, and actually, like, we're all over the world in lots of different places. So I just wanted to do a really quick shout out to all of you guys over in Hong Kong, in Australia, and in America. I just wanted to say hi. I really value you listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for supporting us. And I would absolutely love it if you could take an opportunity to either leave me a review on Apple iTunes. I know it's a bit of a headache sometimes to actually figure out how to do the reviews, but if you have a phone, it's the easiest place to do it from. If you go into the podcast app, scroll down on the podcast, and you'll see a section that says leave a review. I do also take the opportunity as much as possible to read out our testimonials and feedback that we get from our listeners. So thank you once again for supporting me. And I also want to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about something that's really, really special that we have just created just for you guys. So one of the questions I get asked a lot in my audience is, how do I know how much to be investing for the future? And a lot of people have questions about how much do I invest? What do I do with existing pensions maybe that I've got in place from maybe previous employments? What do I do with them? Do I consolidate them? Do I not? And we've covered this subject on the podcast before, but what we've now decided to do is actually create a mini course just for this, to really help you to get some clarity on exactly what do you need to do? What are the steps that you need to take? What knowledge do you need in order to figure out how much do I need to live on in the future? How much do I need to be investing? And what the hell do I do with all of my existing pensions? So we've put together a really special Pensions Made Simple course just for you. It's not a course that's going to take you hours and hours of time. We've created it with super short videos. And also the most exciting bit is we've created 2 additional resources for you. One, which is a future me spending planner. This is really going to help you to add in all your numbers, like your current lifestyle numbers, because that's the best place to start. What are you spending at the moment? What's going to stop, start, and continue in retirement or in the future? And then we can start to think about how much money do you need in the future so that you can create that certainty for yourself, for your future. But not only that, we're also giving you a digital organizer. So where we have all our accounts all over the place, one of the first steps is to create some clarity over where is everything? Where are my bank accounts stored? What are my account details? And actually this becomes a document, a digital document, an organizational tool that can be very, very helpful also to harbor better conversations with your partner with money, And also to safeguard against, if anything happens to you, somebody's got one place where they can find all of that information. So I'm really excited to share that with you today. If that's something that sounds of interest, if you head over to catherinemorgan.com/pensions made simple, with a little dash in between those words. So it's pensions made simple. That's catherinemorgan.com/pensions made simple. I'll pop a link in the show notes so you can grab that with ease if you're listening to this perhaps on your walk or whilst you're driving. So let's get into the main topic of today. So on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about rules to stop you going into debt or to get back into debt. So one of the first tips I want to share with you today is to focus on your beliefs first. So in other words, one of the things that a lot of people focus on with coming out of debt is the behaviors, like the actions, the practical steps. And sure, that's really super important. But our behaviors, the actions or inactions, are actually dictated by our beliefs around money. So in order to change the behaviors, we have to go back 2 steps and think about, what do we actually even think and feel about money in the first place? What are our core beliefs? If you imagine the core beliefs that you carry around about money, which guide how you behave, like a sack. So if you imagine all the beliefs that you carried, all the influences that you've had growing up around money are all stored in a bag and they're thrown over your shoulder like Father Christmas. You know, it's those beliefs that actually go on to dictate how we feel and how we behave around money. So before we go to the behaviors and changing the behaviors, we need to go 2 steps back. And there's a lot of research that shows that we automatically favor what is familiar to us. So if debt is familiar to you, like it was for me in my 20s, I was in debt every month, like every single month I was living in my overdraft. It became my comfort zone. And when that becomes familiar to us, our brain wants us to repeat the same pattern because it doesn't like anything complicated. Have you ever noticed that? Anything that's complicated with money, we just avoid. And our relationship with debt is just as important as our relationship with savings. And that was a pivotal moment for me when I came out of debt and I started saving. I was recreating a new neural pathway that savings then became more familiar than debt. And then one took over from the other. And so focusing time on exploring your relationship with money is going to be absolutely paramount and so valuable for you to spend time on. And the question to ask yourself is actually, are you operating on autopilot? Like I was on autopilot in debt. I kind of recognized that that's where I was, but I was just on autopilot. I continued in this habitual cycle of behavior. So I want to give you a couple of questions to ask yourself. And if you're listening to this and you're walking or you're driving, pause this, grab some paper, or listen back on the replay a bit later on. But I want you to think about these questions for yourself. I want you to ask yourself, what habits do you currently have on autopilot? How long have you been carrying these habits? How long have you been carrying these habits? Who influenced their creation in the first place? Are these habits that have been inherited from what you observed growing up around money, from parents, maybe, or brothers and sisters, or partners? So who influenced those creations? And how do these habits serve you today? How do they serve you today? How do you feel when they don't happen, when you don't follow them? How do you feel? Because sometimes when we feel like we need to let a habit go, we feel unsafe because it's that uncertainty then creeps in. And so we feel like we get stuck in habits because it creates certainty. So how do you feel when you don't follow these habits? How would you feel? If there's an element of uncertainty there, then just recognize that, because recognizing that emotion is the first step in changing the emotion and changing the behavior. And then the final question for you to write down: what do you tell yourself? What does this tell yourself about what you value? What do your money habits tell yourself about what you value? It's a really great question to ask yourself. Because if, for example, you're spending a lot of money on Amazon books, as an example, I remember coaching a client last year and she held a huge amount of guilt and shame because she was spending a lot of money on books. And when I asked her, well, what does that tell you about what you value? She said, well, knowledge. And I was like, wow, how important is that knowledge to you? She was like, incredibly important, because it enables me to progress in my business. It enables me to feel free. It enables me to feel like I can create some well-being for myself. So we put it in her spending plan. And that was important to her. But what was happening for her is she was feeling a huge amount of guilt and shame. Well, I shouldn't be spending this amount on books. I shouldn't be doing this. And I've talked on a few episodes back before about how consumerism shoods on us, right? I always feel like I'm swearing when I say that. It shoods on us. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. And there's no one that should be telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing around money. It's what matters to you. But the challenge is if those expenses or those spending habits are causing you to go into debt, then we need to think about what's causing that. What's the trigger? Okay. So step number 2 is to focus on your needs today versus your needs tomorrow. This is a really, really big one. This is something I teach my children. You know, what do we need today versus what do we need tomorrow? And the challenge with this is that our brain likes to think about the present moment because it's easy. It's hard to think about the future. I don't know about you, but I find it hard planning for what I'm going to do in 12 months' time, let alone what I'm going to do when I'm 60. And overspending can come in from the need to be in control. So if your debt cycle is occurring because of overspending habits, that can often come from the need to feel like you need to be in control. And this becomes a cycle of habitual behavior, and then that compounded by maybe the lack of planning, it can keep us stuck in our kind of financial present states, living only for today and not really thinking about tomorrow. So focusing on your needs today as well as your needs tomorrow will help you to create some balance, you know, and that's a hard one to get right? Because we all want to live in the today, but equally we want to make sure that we are financially secure for the future. So one of the things that you can do is to create yourself a spending plan, you know, commit to regularly tracking your money, the ins and the outs, so that you can understand how that feels to track your spending. It was one of the most pivotal things that I did when I was coming out of debt, is to just look at my spending habits and track how I was feeling about every pound that was coming in and out of my account. And sure, there was a lot of guilt and shame that came up. And the biggest step for me, which I know will be the same for you guys if you're listening to this, is about going through that healing process of forgiveness. Like, debt is a terrible word that most people think, you know, debt is bad. But there are lots of situations when debt can be good. You know, leveraging in property, for example, having a mortgage, that's a good debt. Investing in education, that's a good debt to have. But that word debt carries so much power and negative power, I think. So reframe that for yourself. You know, money already spent. That's how I like to perceive it. It's money already spent. We joke about this in our Money Circle community. Yeah, because that reframe of language can just be enough to allow yourself to forgive decisions that you've made in the past, right? You made them in the past. We can't change them. They're decisions that you made for a purpose. So let's let go of that guilt and that shame in order for us to move forward and change our financial habits and behaviors. And I know I'm saying that like it's easier said than done, and it is a process. Self-healing around money and the guilt and shame we carry is a process. It's a therapy process. And that leads me on to my final point, which is around separating your self-worth from money. You know, most debt tips focus on helping you pay down the debts, the practical steps. But the word debt can carry so much emotion, so much shame, so much guilt. And one of the most powerful things that you could also try for yourself is to write a letter to money as if it were a person. You know, how are you treating it? Are you ignoring it? Are you best friends? How much attention do you pay it? How much power do you give money in your life? How much gratitude do you pay money for what you already have? What causes you to go into debt, to use the credit card, to go into your overdraft? What's the cause of that? often it's the emotion that sits behind that purchase that is the ultimate cause. And it's understanding, well, what is that emotion we're trying to create? Are we trying to come away from a stressful situation? Have we had a bad day at work? Are we bored? Is there nothing else to watch on the TV? So we just grab our phone and we start scrolling. Those kind of pattern interrupts can be quite powerful. And whilst I'm not going to go into this particular episode on how to stop yourself going into debt from a practical perspective, I just think that separating how we feel about money, our self-worth from money, is super, super important. So if you hear yourself saying, I'm bad with money, I can't manage my money, I go into debt continuously, like I'm a massive overspender, we label ourselves. And it's really, really quite dangerous, I think, to label ourselves in that way. Because don't forget, when we use those labels, the brain will look for more evidence to support what we tell it, because the brain doesn't know how to differentiate between fact and non-fact. So whatever we tell it, it will go and do in order to keep us safe, to feel loved, to feel connected, to feel worthy. So if you ever hear yourself saying things like, I'm bad with money, then that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It's not who you are. Debt is not who you are. Separate yourself from money. And that will really, really help you to think about either not going back into debt or trying to come out of that habitual cycle. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. So pop me an email back, hello@themoneypanel.co.uk. Let me know your key takeaways from today. Or if you're watching this on video, just drop me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. As ever, great to speak to you today. I'll see you all again soon. Take care. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do me a big favor and leave me a comment below this video and let me know, what was your one biggest takeaway? What are you going to do differently as a result of watching today's video? Now, you can go ahead and check out more free resources available to you at the website, which is themoneypanel.co.uk, or please feel free to tune into our weekly podcast on all of the typical podcast channels. That's In Her Financial Shoes. And remember, small steps, big wins. Let's go.